So if you're wondering why I have this shirt on every review, it's because I filmed these all in a bulk because I figured that might be a way to be more consistent. So just want to let you know that I'm not like wearing just one shirt over and over. All right, anyways, so we're talking today about Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter. Look at that beautiful cover. I had to look because it's just so good, right? So good. One of the first reviews I did here on the channel, and one of the things I was so fired up about was Rage of Dragons. Rage of Dragons is in contention for the best book I've read this year still, and is, in my opinion, the best debut in modern fantasy. I mean, just tremendous book. The pacing was outstanding. Tao as a protagonist was top-notch. The antagonists were hateable. And Evan Winter just did something special. He built a world in African-inspired fantasy and captivated me and a lot of other people. It was a huge success. He has more books in the pipeline. I think we're getting 3 or 4. I think it's 4. I think The Burning, which is what the series calls 4. And I was very nervous for Fires of Vengeance because sometimes you capture that lightning in a bottle once and you don't get it again, right? We saw Ready Player 1, everyone loves Ready Player 2. Nobody likes that book. If you like Ready Player 2, you should feel bad. I'm just kidding, but it's pretty bad. Anyways, Rage of Dragons was special, and that put a lot of expectations for me for Fires of Vengeance. First book I've ever pre-ordered, by the way. Me and my friend Chris, who I respect greatly, is probably the most well-read person I know. He also pre-ordered it, and we were big fans of Rage of Dragons. We both were at Jiu-Jitsu, which Evan Winter, by the way, practiced Jiu-Jitsu, which is really cool, by the way. Evan, I hope we get to roll sometime if you watch this. But I was getting ready to roll with Chris, I remember, and he was like, man, I lost a lot of nights to Rage of Dragons. I was like, oh, you read that? And he's like, yeah. I was like, me too. We both love the book, right? So it's really cool that I have a friend that is as fired up as this series as I am. And we both burned through Fires of Vengeance, no pun intended. And I'm here to tell you today that it absolutely delivered, and in my opinion, outdid Rage of Dragons. And I'm going to try to explain why without gushing too much. This story picks up directly where Rage of Dragons left off. This is going to be spoiler free. I'm not going to mention any big plot points, but Fires of Vengeance did something in the storytelling that I love, and it's that we didn't glance over anything. It didn't feel like it was boring at all, but we got every single little piece of every detail of the day. Like, I felt like we were going just day to day with Tao and the rest of the crew. And because it felt so intimate and close-knit and such a tight narrative, it makes me get a lot more invested in the little things. Politics play a much larger role, in my opinion, in this book. Whereas we kind of saw it towards the end of Rage of Dragons, this really exemplified that and then continued to have a commentary on the caste system as the story progressed. And we also got to be with my man, all right? One of the best fantasy characters of today in an ongoing series, and that's my boy Tao. I love Tao. Absolutely love him. I mean, a dude trains with demons. How can you not? And he's still really messed up. Tao is still damaged goods in this book. But Tao expands as a protagonist and as a character and as a person. And we see more interest from him. We see a little bit more internal conflict. And I think this took Tao from just being... He's overpowered, okay? But I love that. I'm actually not someone that enjoys overpowered protagonists. It can make the story feel a little bit bland, but because of his motivations and for his purposes, him leveling up and crushing people feels so satisfying. It just feels so satisfying. But he didn't just level up in the power department and the fighting department. I feel like we got a larger birth of who he is as a person, and he grew a lot more, and he expanded into not just your revenge tale badass, but a character that could be relatable in some aspects and introspective in some ways. Also, his faults are on full display in Fires of Vengeance, and they were on display in Rage of Dragons at times, but I feel like he's paying for the sins of his anger here a lot more, and I think it branches into a lot more complex relationships again than we had in the first book. It feels like Fire of Vengeance took everything from Rage of Dragons and built upon it and kept that pace, and we started to see not just, the same tree, but now it's kind of branching off with our characters and how they interact with one another. And the scope is still tight. The narrative is still tight, but our characters are getting deeper, and I really appreciated that. And as you can tell, that blistering pace that we've seen in Rage of Dragons is still here, still feels amazing. When we use the phrase page turner as reviewers and as readers, we use it all the time, and I said this at Rage of Dragons, I'll say it here again, Evan Winter understands page turner. He understands how to write that way. This is exemplified. That is, page turner is exemplified in this fantastic book. And these super tight narratives, I mean, a 500-page book, and it's something that you can breeze through, in 3 or 4 days and never think twice about it. And the more I read and the more I get exposed to even older forms of fantasy, I think I'm starting to really settle on that 500-600 page book that's just razor tight, like just super tight, but doesn't sacrifice on the character quality. I think overall, like the plot, it's not the most inventive of all time, but there are some twists and turns that I really appreciated, and new characters that were introduced, some really strong female characters, which I love, that we had in the first book, but these characters feel deeper, they feel more meaningful and more impactful to the overall narrative, and we're getting a more broad sense of what life in this world is. We know about the Castus, we know about Tau, we knew about Jabari in the first book, but now we're seeing royals, and we're really getting more history of what the chain of command has looked like through this world. And then that obviously supplies the world building, which has been pretty strong, I think, through both books. It's not Sanderson-esque level, but it doesn't need to be. That's not the story that we're telling here. We're telling a very specific story with a character who has very specific goals, and we get the information as we need it. There's not a lot of endless monologuing. The dialogue is very tight and well written. It's impressive that Evan Winter, this is his second book. It's so impressive that that's the case, because it doesn't feel like that at all. This is better than some people's 9th and 10th tries. And this series is, I mean, it's hard because there's so many good ones going on. We got Stormlight, we have Age of Madness by Joe Abercrombie. This is right in contention for best ongoing fantasy series, in my opinion, because of just how precise the story is and how true he stays to his characters. And the combat is as good as ever. There's even a little bit of grappling, I believe. There's some wrestling with demons, metaphorically and physically, which I really appreciate. And the demon stuff, it definitely, the other world is definitely brought in more to the forefront here, which makes it more fantastical. But there are parts of this story that almost feel horror-esque, like, honestly. Like, kind of like checking behind the chair, like, God damn, are there any demons in here, man? Like, that's how I felt when I was reading this in the dark, staying up way past my bedtime because I couldn't put it down. Definitely a little dark, a little horror-themed, and I dig it. I mean, I love horror. I think it's becoming more meta, too, just in entertainment in general, but very well done. Didn't feel hokey or cringy or edgelordy at all. It felt like it had a lot of impact. It felt like it had a lot of severity. I felt Tau was in danger, maybe even more so than Rage of Dragons, and because he gets to show, he is overpowered, okay, but when we see him be more treated like a mortal and have mortal wounds and whatnot, it definitely adds an element to the story that makes it more interesting. So even though he is overpowered, and I kind of talked about that before, I do think that there's some chinks in that armor. Also emotionally. There's some chinks in the armor emotionally that you'll have to see for yourself. It wraps up beautifully. I think just alone, this book was amazing. It has set up the third and fourth book. I have no idea what's going to happen. It seems like there's some pretty big implications for the fantastical elements of the demons and the magic system in the book. And it got a little more fleshed out here. It's still not the most in-depth magic system for sure. But I feel like book 3 and 4, that is going to have to come to the forefront here, because there will be consequences for what happens in Fires of Vengeance. Evan Winter is still one of the best doing it. It's so awesome to still be doing these reviews, knowing that one of my first reviews I did was Rage of Dragons, and it was one of my most watched videos at that point. And it introduced me to a lot of you guys, a lot of the people that I talk to every day still. And I'm very thankful for that, and I'm thankful for this story. Evan Winter, you did a knock-up job, man. I said you were a heavy hitter, and you still are. You're still, you're batting clean up for me. And one of the best ongoing series, like I said, personal favorites, and it's going to be in contention for the best books of 2020, without a doubt for me. We'll see where it lands on the list. It's going to be high. Fires of Vengeance succeeds Rage of Dragons. It's such a close one, because I think Fires of Vengeance is wonderful because of the building blocks that Rage of Dragons built, right? as far as just storytelling and writing ability, prose, all that stuff, Fires of Vengeance is a level up for Evan Winter, and it was a level up for me as a reader because I enjoyed it, I think, just a little bit more than Rage of Dragons, which is saying quite a bit because I gave Rage of Dragons 5 out of 5 stars. So go ahead and give him the 5 out of 5 for Fires of Vengeance, and I 100% recommend you check it out. Have you read it? Have you went with Tales of the Demon World? Let me know down in the comments, and we can talk about it. I really would love to see what people think is going to happen in Book 3 and where you think this world is going forward, because I am kind of at a loss at the end of Book 2 on what we can expect and how Tao is going to make it out. So let me know. Hit like and subscribe if you want to see that. Check out for my keep your eyes out for my best of 2020 and my year-end awards that I'll be doing here on the channel. I'm really excited to do those, and I hope you have a great day. And remember to always turn the page.